we have to do our predictions for the rankings in the Eastern Conference, because right now I'm looking at the bottom of these standings for the East, and I can't remember a time where look, the East has always been the weaker conference. I think historically speaking, the West has always been stronger. The East has had some. There's no argument that the West has always been. I'm not saying every single year. I'm saying in the big picture, the West is for almost the entirety of our lifetime has been the better conference.
Almost the entire. There was the Grizzlies 2 seed years. I feel like pretty clearly the West was weaker.
That's not what I'm saying, though. Okay. What I'm saying is that the East is generally the weaker conference.
Yeah.
The last time the East was the stronger conference was like the 80s. Maybe there might have been a time in the 90s where there was an argument, but since the 2000s, it's been West dominance. And looking at the bottom part of this Eastern Conference, it's about as gross as you can possibly get. I think that some teams are smartly leading into the tank. Some teams are fooling themselves into thinking that they will be competitive and are just going to be bad. And I think that is going to result in an improved NBA where there's so much talent, as we talk about with this talent boom in both conferences, that someone needs to lose. And these teams are going to lose a lot this upcoming season. Like, there's going to be, last year, obviously, we had the Wizards and the Pistons having, like, the Pistons a historically bad stretch. The Wizards even finished with like a similarly bad record last year. I think if I remember correctly, the Hornets had even a worse net rating than both of them. So just to give you kind of some context to how bad things have been in the East over this last year, I don't think they're going to get much better for the teams at the bottom. So why don't we talk about who we have in our 15 seed? And I think we're both going to have the same team.
I'm gonna go with the Wizards, but I feel it's gonna be the Wizards. It's gonna be the Wizards.
I don't feel great about a lot of my over-unders as we get further away from it.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't lock the Wizards under, I would like to. What's the highest level of lock you can have on an under? Because I would like to literally have, if this doesn't happen, I won't watch basketball. The Wizards are horrible. I watched them in preseason. They're terrible. They have no good players. They have all of their, and by the way, I'm fine with this. I've said it before. I'm fine with the Wizards being bad. I'm fine with them finally leaning into the tank and looking at this, rebuild window that they have right now and getting as many lottery tickets as they possibly can to hit on a star, whether it's next draft or developing the guys they currently have on the roster, or trading for maybe some star in plain sight or role player guys. I'm totally fine with it. Reality is they traded away their best player in Denny Avdia for Malcolm Brogdon, who's already hurt. They will be playing a lot of Sarr, a lot of Bub Carrington, who I love, but also is a rookie point guard and will probably struggle to impact winning, who will be playing a lot of Kuzma ball, which have you seen Kuzma in the preseason?
I have not, but I've heard stories. I've heard he's what we call on one.
He's back on his bullshit, and he is probably the most emboldened he's ever been in his career, I would say. He had a play the other night where he crossed up Ben Simmons, and then Ben fell over, and he completely airballed the pull-up three. In one quarter, he had 3 air balls. We're going to see a historically bad Wizards team again.
Okay, but here's the thing. He's very distressed. The RFK not only dropped out, but has to deal with all this Olivia Nuzzi stuff, the public eye. Like, that's got to be weighing on him. So there's a chance that calms down after Trump's victory in
that's true.
November.
So. Yeah, maybe he gets maybe RFK gets named to the cabinet, and then
that was the rumor, was that he didn't endorse Kamala because Kamala wouldn't offer him a cabinet position, and maybe Trump did. So
yeah,
Secretary of Health. RFK Jr.
Might be a nice boost for Kuzma this upcoming season to get a voice for the voiceless back in there for him. Some of the most underrepresented people in the world of the the Kennedy family and along with the Trumps.
I love when if there's one group that we need to hear more of, it's rich people from New York and Massachusetts.
Exactly.
More of them.
Yep.
In there.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that once again, I'm not even shitting on the Wizards. I think they want to be bad. Like, I think that they are.
This is by design. This is
all by design. I even think there was a chance they saw Denny maybe helping them a little bit too much in these next 2 years. And they said, let's get value for Denny while we still can. And let's really lean into the tank so that we can, for the first time in the history of the Washington Wizards, since they become the Wizards at least, have a franchise cornerstone player that can help us contend for championships. Because right now, the bar is way high for that level of player. Like, you have to really have a top-notch guy on your team and then also nail the team building around it.
Yep.
And the Wizards realize they're so far away that I think that they will very obviously. Like, I've been saying all offseason, especially the last 2 months, to me, it's crazy that people we're putting the Nets have a lower over-under. A lot of people have been saying, oh, this Nets team is going to be so terrible. That team has way more talent. They played them in the preseason the other night, and it looked like varsity versus junior varsity. Like, they are just clearly a better team. They have more NBA players. And I think that it's very obvious that the Wizards are going to be at the bottom here. So 15 seed, we're both going to agree with on the Wizards. The 14 seed for you.
I thought about this one quite a bit too. I do think Detroit is probably going to be a worse team, but I think that Brooklyn is going to be navigating and pulling some chicanery to get themselves to that lower spot. Like, I think Mickey Mouse March, this is going to flip-flop. I think Brooklyn's going to win more games early, and I think they're going to start trading guys and doing everything they can, and they're eventually going to sneak out because when it's Cade Cunningham season, meaning St. Patrick's Day and onwards, he's going to be cooking, and they're going to get like 3 wins there, and that'll really help. So I'm going with the Nets there, and then I'll put Detroit 13.
Yeah, so I'm going same thing. I have Nets 14, Detroit 13. I will say this much about the Nets. I think they might have to pull the plug even sooner than they expect. Like, I think that if we get into the season and they're like, even if they're like 5-12, like, they might be like starting to put together. Sean Marks is going to be in the trade machine cooking up some war crimes. He's going to be kind of putting the pieces together to really pull the plug on this thing, because if they don't pull the plug and accidentally win too many games, you could get into a situation where, once again, I don't trust any of these bottom 4 or 5 teams in the East right now. The Nets being a 14, it's basically due to the fact that exactly what you just said. Like, I think that they have more incentive to lean into the tank. I think that they know that they got their pick back. They traded Mikal Bridges, that Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Claxton, whoever might not be on this team in a few months. Whereas the Pistons are at a point where they've done tanking for so long, they can't keep doing it. They very obviously, they didn't go with like, a young development coach. They went with like a more proven guy who's been around, even if you're not high on JB Bickerstaff. A team that wants to build from the ground up isn't hiring JB Bickerstaff. So that's plus the fact that they went out and they basically did a much worse version of what the Houston Rockets did last year. Like the Rockets brought in Fred VanVleet, who's actually good. And Dylan Brooks, even with his flaws, had like a nice stretch last year, is always really good on defense. And they put together the pieces of a real team.
They had guys who could shoot.
Yeah, and I think the Pistons have a few guys who can shoot. So here's the thing. I don't know if you saw this, but Alex Spears from Saturday Slam and Jam posted this earlier, and he said, "Fool me once, ... And it was last year, the most over bets in the NBA last year was on the Detroit Pistons over at 28.5. And then they didn't even come close to that, obviously. This year, after having a historically bad year last year, they are second place in the most bets placed on the over at 25.5. But I just want to say, here's the thing with the Pistons. I still think they're going to suck. I still think they're going to be bad. It wouldn't shock me if they win anywhere from 25 to 30 games. And the reason why is because I think that a lot of these teams are going to be quicker to pull the plug. Even the teams that we haven't even got to discuss yet, the Hornets, the Bulls, those teams will be more quickly to pull the plug and lean into it and not try to be competitive down the stretch. I think they're more likely to make potentially a win now move in this season, even if I think they shouldn't. And I also think that there's a chance that what we've seen from Ivy and Cade in the preseason turns out to translate to the regular season. And even though that doesn't make them a good team, it makes them not a historically bad team like they were last year. So the Pistons, I'm still putting them at 13, but I think that it wouldn't shock me if they win, a few of the coin flip games that they were losing last year, flip the other way, and then they end up being, a 27 win team or whatever it is. Now, I would stay away from that. I would never bet on the over. I still took the under for them. I still think they win like 24 games, but I think that it's close enough for me that I could see it going in either direction. But to have that for the second straight year is the most bet on thing is insane.
The thing is, like, I'm not sure because when it came down to like Charlotte, spoiler alert, will probably be my 12th selection. And I was kind of going back and forth between like Detroit and Charlotte, I think you're right. I think Detroit is like trying to win more, but I just think that even if LaMelo Ball is like always hurt, he's like an actual like all-star, and they do have Mark Williams. They do have
already hurt, by the way.
Did he really already get hurt? When did that happen? Was that last night?
He hasn't been playing in preseason.
What? He was hurt in the offseason? Or is it just carried over from last year?
All I can tell you is that they have been worried about his foot. And this is going back to last year. I don't know if it's a foot injury. I did hear that he was injured. He wasn't playing. There's a Hornets fan in our Discord that's like, he got another foot injury during training camp. Yep. Yeah. I was going to say Mark Williams and LaMelo Ball are the biggest reason their health status is the biggest reason I'm not buying into like any sort of improvement from the Hornets. But
yeah, I think they're going to be ass again no matter what. But like, I just like Brandon Miller. Like, I don't know. Those guys, when those guys are healthy, I've actually seen those guys be good. When Cade Cunningham has been healthy, there's been excuses for Cade Cunningham about why he's not good. Like, and yes, like that team is like badly put together. Maybe Fontecchio like shooting like alleviates things. I watched a lot of Tobias Harris last year. You watched more Tobias Harris than me. That guy fucking sucks. I'm sorry. He's so fucking bad. Like, and the fact that they paid so much money to him, like, I don't know. Like,
did you see the other night, by the way?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened when Paul George like balled out in his first preseason game, and the same night was Tobias Harris's first preseason game?
No.
And he came out and he literally made his first 6 shots, including 2 threes, was hooping the whole time, and I was like, Demon Tobias, revenge season? Question mark.
Well, the Sixers fucked up when they let Detroit get this demon. I can't.
I will say, I once again I agree that I don't think that any of their offseason additions are meaningful. But I also think that like having even a replacement level player like Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, whoever, will still somehow be an improvement on them last year. So that's why I'm taking them to go from historically bad to like just normal bad.
Yeah. I do think JV Bickerstaff is like not good, but like he's not like terrible. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to do something like
he's not Carl Havoc. He's not I don't want to be around anymore, Monty Williams.
Yeah, he's not going to ground Jaden Ivey for like not going to church or whatever the fuck Monty Williams was doing. Like
no, I don't know if you saw the report.
Oh, what's the report?
He's not allowing them to wear hoodies in the facility anymore.
God. NBA coaches don't be paternalistic.
Yeah,
challenge level impossible.
They can't avoid it with their coaches right now.
They're grown fucking men, dude.
Yeah,
like they're millionaires. Like,
oh yeah, that's the reason why that they weren't good. That's the reason why they were historically bad last year, because they were walking around with those dang hoodies all the time. No sense of professionalism.
The only franchise, okay, I will say that the Charlotte Hornets do need, the only team that won't do that, because you do need like a dad figure to go in there. Steve Clifford was asleep at the wheel. You need Monty Williams to go in there and tell LaMelo, hey, just show him like a PSA of like dangerous, distracted driving.
I think that's
like
fair.
That. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Just explain to LaMelo that, like, listen, you could, like, we're only probably within a year you'll have the new GTA 6. You don't have to do it on the actual roads in Charlotte. You don't have to put pedestrians' lives into danger.
He could buy such a good simulator rig. Yeah,
you have so much money.
There's so many guys on TikTok. I have my thing so perfectly curated. There's just all these guys that do like just trucking simulations, and it's just them driving for like 6 hours on the interstate, but it's them in front of 9 monitors that wrap around them.
Awesome.
Driving. Like, that's cool. You could do that.
That's what LaMelo needs to do. That needs to be his new hyper focus.
Yeah. I guarantee you the Hornets will buy that for you.
Yes, exactly. You could probably reach out to Mark Zuckerberg personally and live in the metaverse if you wanted to. You have so much money.
You could buy a car, hire a chauffeur to drive you, and then the back seat has its own steering wheel, like Maggie Simpson, and it's all monitors. Like, so you feel like you're driving and you're not endangering anyone, but you're going like 1 billion miles an hour.
We're coming up with solutions. We are fixing the Hornets right now.
Right now. That's how this is out. Like, because if they did that, if they got that for LaMelo, I would pick them to be the 8th seed in the East.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Also, you would probably want him to have like a functioning lower body, but that's another issue within itself. No. But yeah, so I'm going Pistons 13, Hornets 12. I don't feel super strong about this either way. Like, you could tell me it's reversed. LaMelo doesn't ever get back. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but 22 games played last year, 36 the year before. It's bad. That's very bad. And if that is the case, then I think that they're just going to be pretty bad again. Like, I mean, look at the rest of the roster. Once again, the one reason why I could see the Pistons finishing 12th instead of 13th, and you might even be able to talk me into 11th, and here's why. The bottom of the East is going to be so bad again. The Pistons are the only one of these bottom 5 that have no incentive to tank. The Bulls have a protected pick that they have sent out. Actually, I think the Pistons technically do, but there's no way that they'll ever be good enough to. It's like top 12 protected for this upcoming year. They don't have to worry about it.
That would be so fucking funny, though.
Yeah, if they accidentally make a win.
Yeah,
they make a win now trade in the middle of the year. They send the pick to the Wolves. It would actually go to the Wolves, and it's like the 13th pick.
It was traded to the Knicks. It wasn't the Jalen Duren.
It was traded in the Karl Anthony Towns trade.
Oh, I see. I got you.
Yeah. So now the Wolves have that pick, but that's not going to happen this year. Maybe next year, maybe the following year. It ain't happening this year.
They trade for Brandon Ingram. Like, yeah, floor raiser.
They accidentally win. They accidentally win like 30 games, and then they sneak into the play-in. Because the bottom of the East is so bad that a team with 30 wins makes the play-in as the 10 seed, and then they win their 2 play-in games, and they get all the way into the 8 seed. They get swept in the first round, and they have to give up like the 14th pick of the draft. I don't even know if that's how this. I don't even think that's how it works.
Flip Asar Thompson and
it's based on regular season record, I think so.
Flipping Asar Thompson and Tobias at the trade deadline for Julius Randle, and also having Julius Randle with Brandon Ingram.
Boy.
The perfect team. I like want that. Like, they just do exactly what they did during the Stan Van Gundy years. Like
some really gross win, quote unquote win now trade.
Yeah, it just
makes them unwatchably bad again.
Well, it just makes them unwatchable, but like just barely good enough to get like the 9 seed.
Oh, by the way, we'll talk about this when we do the West episode on Patreon. But speaking of unwatchable, dude, I watched the Pelicans play against the Rockets last night without Zion. I mean, David Griffin to the Hague for putting Brandon Ingram and DeJounte Murray on the same team. What do you think fucking happened? Like, literally the entire time it was both of them trying to cook, both of them taking horrible mid-range shots. Like, I'm not opposed to, like, look, I obviously at one point I was so delusional that I talked myself into both of these guys on the Sixers, but I would never put both of them on the same team together. How could you do that? It was, dude, it was so bad. Their offense, and one of the Pelicans reporters, I felt bad because he was like, man, it just seems like the Pelicans offense has really been stuck in the mud in this preseason. Can't seem to figure things out. And I'm like, I wonder why. I wonder why.
They need dominating. Dominating, you are New Orleans Pelican. I can't wait. I can't wait to do a complete. This is how you save Ayton's career. He just goes to a fun city. He just needed a fun place to live.
Yeah, that's exactly what
he's the only guy who's ever had like a effort attitude problem and goes to New Orleans and completely locks in.
DeAndre Ayton is a work hard, play hard guy. He's those guys on Wall Street that work 90 hours a week, but then like are at the strip club doing Quaaludes until 3 a.m.
Yeah. I need him, dude. He would be. He's just gonna have a religious experience in New Orleans, like I did, like where he's just like, "This is an amazing city. I never want to get traded. I'm locking in."
It's not unique to you. I mean, I think everyone I've ever talked to who's been in New Orleans has been enlightened every time they go. So it's a fantastic, magical place.
Why would you not play hard in this? I don't understand why guys don't try hard there. I would want to like stay there forever. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it probably does get annoying to be like, hey, can I get like a shooting sleeve for my arm, and like the trainers run over to the Saints practice facility and dig through the garbage and like just drag out like, hey, one of these guys had like a copper fit knee brace. Maybe we can like duct tape that to you. Will that help? Is that good for you?
I think it's less that. I don't really think they care all that much about that. I think it's more the fact that like high school football is literally more popular than Pelicans basketball. Like, I'm not exaggerating at all. Like, they just do not give a fuck.
I think Smoothie King Arena. Let our guy. Fuck. Why am I blanking on his name? Quarterback for the Saints. Terrible.
Derek Carr.
Let's let Derek Carr morph into Mr. Hyde. Derek Carr here in the second half of the season, and they'll come running.
Well, he's already injured, so that's not a great start.
Did he got injured?
Yeah, Spencer Rattler started this past week.
Oh wow, I didn't watch football this week.
But well, after 2 weeks, Bill compared the Saints offense to the greatest show on turf.
No way.
Yeah, and then they immediately scored like 12 points against the Eagles defense, and the Eagles defense has been not great this year. So
to say the least,
yeah,
Slay might be the worst player I've ever seen. Like in the second, he reminds me.
He's also hurt right now, so it doesn't.
Oh, good.
They're all the NFL is just a blood sport. We've been over this.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's hurt. Yeah, everyone gets hurt. It's football.
Yeah. What was it that they're good? The Lions' good lineman like snapped his leg in half last week. I heard.
Hutchinson.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. So. It's a blood sport, dude. It's just insane. It's gladiators. But yeah, last thing on the Pelicans real quick before we move on to the rest of our Eastern standings. Did you see Bill's trade proposal for the Thunder on their podcast that he did?
What remind me again? I did listen to that.
He suggested that they trade for Trey Murphy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that was awesome. That was like the first thing I tweeted that. It was like, his reasoning was the Pelicans, he's a restricted free agent. And it's like, yeah, he's a restricted free agent in an offseason when like 2 teams are going to have cap space.
Hold on. 2 teams are going to have cap space. The Pelicans have said over and over again that they do not want to let him walk. They're like, he's like our biggest priority. And they are, and his argument for trading, this is, I'm not even joking. I'm sorry to any Kings fans in the comments. I know we have one in here right now. This is the exact same mindset why they traded Halliburton for Sabonis. Yeah. Because the asset, De'Aaron Fox's trade value wasn't high enough, and they wanted to split those two up. So they traded Halliburton, who had real trade value, to get Sabonis. And so his mindset on this was, well, Brandon Ingram has no trade value, so you can't trade Brandon Ingram. But it's like, yes, you can. Literally, if you traded Brandon Ingram today, your team is better.
Yes.
Like that team with DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, you got to get rid of one of them at least, if not two of them. And if you do that, your team will be better. It's the same thing as I talked about with Tobias Harris. Like the Sixers are going to be better even if they didn't get Paul George, they will be better in the games without Joel Embiid with Tobias Harris next year, because it is addition by subtraction. There's too much redundancy, too much overlap. You don't trade Trey Murphy because you can't trade Brandon Ingram, who's on an expiring contract. If you just attach picks to Brandon Ingram, you could get positive value back. You could get good players. Like, you could literally, like, what if the Clippers fucking suck and you're like, hey, can we get Zubac and Terrence Mann for Brandon Ingram in a first? Like, those are the kind of moves you should be making.
Yes.
You shouldn't trade Trey Murphy.
That'd be great for that's a good move. I like that. Brandon Ingram, like, Zubac package. Like, yeah. Like, it stinks that you didn't, like, it's the Masai Ujiri mindset where it's like,
you didn't sell high enough.
Right. We didn't trade him. Like, yes, you could have got more 2 years ago, but guess what? You didn't do it then. So sorry. This is what it is now. It's not going to get better.
You're telling me that you could have traded him and gotten a positive package after the best playoff series of his life? You haven't been back to the playoffs since. So, like, what do you expect? Like, well, you have actually once, and Brandon Ingram was terrible. So do have to point that part out. But anyway, drove me insane that listening. Yeah, let me just make the Thunder even more unbeatable than they already are.
Yeah, they need Trey Murphy too. Like, that's like the one thing, like,
embarrassment of riches.
It's like, outside of, like, unless they're just like straight up adding an all-star, that's like about as good as you could get, as like adding.
And he would be like their eighth man.
Yeah. By the way, that was like one of the only I crunched all the numbers on the Bill and Russillo pods and said how we did. We 18 and 12 for both Bill and Russillo. So not good, but not bad. Bill zagged on us in some big ways.
Bill zagged on us in a crazy way with the Suns. I was shocked when he was way in on the Suns.
He and Russillo both locked that over, which is fucking nuts.
You know what's the mistake we made?
What?
We didn't wait until preseason. Because the Suns are balling out in preseason. They've looked really good. They got a new coach. I went back and I looked at the top net ratings of last preseason. Do you want to guess where the Suns were?
Number 2.
They were 4th.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was. Like,
I'm not saying preseason means nothing, because I do actually think that there is some, like, if a team looks like a disaster in preseason or a team looks amazing in preseason, I think it means something. If a team is good in preseason, it means nothing to me. Like, it means like last year, the Celtics and the Wolves were both ahead of the Suns. That meant something. Like, they had figured something out. Like, and they were also good teams, but it doesn't mean everything. It's just it's just more information to add on top of something. It's like, oh, we knew the Wizards were going to be terrible, and they look like the worst team in the league by a wide margin. That's just confirming what we already knew. We knew the Celtics were going to be great this year. The Celtics look great in preseason. Like, that means more to me than, like, the Suns won some games and Ryan Dunn looks really good in preseason.
I gotta say, Bill and House joining us on the Atlanta overlock makes me a little nervous. It makes me a little nervous, I'm going to be honest.
So the Sixers and the Hawks played the other night, and once again, preseason doesn't mean everything. The Sixers didn't have Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey shot like shit from the field. Paul George got hurt in the second quarter, and they won fairly easily. Look, one game preseason, not reading too much into it. Atlanta's going to be mid. I still feel confident about that lock on the Atlanta.
I do too.
I still feel fine, but like that's the level of team they are. One night they're going to look great, and then the next night they're going to look bad. But that's better than 35 wins, which is where they were at. So
I also wanted to bring this up because you also mentioned that you want to do lock a Washington under. I can add that in because here's something I realized.
They have 6 locks.
Yes, say I'd say so. Russillo and House had 6 locks. Chad Bill had 8.
Wow.
And I think he like wiped some out because it's very confusing because I'm going along tracking the locks and then they get to the end. Like at one point, Bill had like the Sacramento overlocked, but then he like went back on it and like unlocked it. So there's some funny ones on there. But yeah, like Washington under. He joined you on the San Antonio under. The Cleveland over, which we like, I think we literally predicted on the pod that Bill was going to lock the Cleveland over. Him and Russillo both being locking the Orlando over was pretty interesting. They had 47.5, I think, for that log where we had 48.5. But like that's still kind of interesting to me that they were also really in on Orlando. Like I don't think that's like as crazy as like Phoenix or anything like that. But it's interesting.
At all. Orlando's kind of like the. I think they have some of the highest approval rating of any team in the NBA right now. Yeah. I think that there's not many Orlando skeptics and there's a ton of Orlando supporters.
Yeah. They're the beat them with hammers defense and then like good young offensive guys you can kind of watch develop is like a good thing to believe in.
It's also like a fun thing to root for a team that's kind of been in piss and shit for a while. Like it's never fun when a team just kind of goes through whatever they've gone through for the last decade, and now they have a lot of reasons to be optimistic. KCP is nerd fodder.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Magic. We'll get to that in a second because I have them fairly high on mine. So, all right. So we got up to the 11 seed before we stopped. So, you also had the Hornets in the 12 seed. So we're in lockstep here.
I forgot. Now I'm second guessing it. I don't know. The Bulls are also dog shit. Like Charlotte, Detroit, the Bulls. I think that's
a tier.
Yeah, that is a tier.
Like, I think the Wizards are in their own tier of bad.
Yeah.
The Nets are like half a tier above that, and then these teams are the tier above the Wizards.
Because I think all of these teams to like varying degrees are going to kind of be trying a little bit. Like the Bulls, like Lonzo supposedly is going to be back. I think he's playing tonight, right? Like, so
we'll see. I'm not optimistic. I really hope that I'm wrong about Lonzo.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong about both the Ball brothers.
Yeah.
History tells us that we actually have nothing to go on for this Lonzo thing. Actually, I can't even say history tells us. History tells us he hasn't played basketball in fucking over 2.5 years at this point, which is nuts. The last time he played a basketball game, Ben Simmons was still technically on the Sixers.
I saw that. Will put in the chat that like the Celtics had a losing record also.
Yeah, because it was during their disaster stretch before they flipped the switch and turned it around that season. Like they were around 500. Like they
lost to the Knicks in January to put them like 2 games under 500.
Yeah, RJ Barrett hit that shot, and then everything kind of flipped after that. Yeah. That is there really isn't any recent history that tells us that whatever Lonzo's like basically getting a new meniscus put in, this surgery, means that he's going to play a lot of games. But on the off chance that he even plays 30 games, even if he plays 30 games and he looks half like himself, between him, Io, Kobe White, Levine, they at least have one unit of like guard/wings. I wish that you could just send Josh Giddey away. That makes me feel somewhat comfortable about them having like some talent at least. And I actually think if you stack up their rosters of veteran talent and young talent versus Detroit and Charlotte, assuming LaMelo Ball misses a lot of time again, I actually think that Chicago has an argument for the best. I'm baking in LaMelo only playing 20 to 30 games into that.
Yeah.
My thing with Chicago is like, do they make moves? Because I think that they could make moves to trade guys away. I think that they could make moves to lean into. Keep in mind, they have a top. San Antonio owns their pick.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't laughing at you.
I know. I saw the comment. I saw the comment. San Antonio has a top 9 protected pick from the Bulls. If we get a month into the season and the Bulls are accidentally winning too much, does this team finally do the right thing and pull the plug and make some trades?
No,
That's the problem.
Silva, yeah, they're not going to do that.
That's why I have them finishing higher, because I think they're more likely to go in the opposite direction and realize that they're fucking and not realize they're fucking up.
Here's the thing, because I have watched a little bit of like preseason Bulls. I cannot believe how like damaging Giddey is. Like, I kind of thought he would at least be like a little bit humbled by this. He is like out there. He's Jordan Poole 2.0, man. Yeah. Like, he genuinely could have like a Jordan Poole style like season. And like, you're right. The Bulls have Zach LaVine. They have Kobe White. I think Giddey might be like a fucking grenade that's just getting like the pin was pulled and dropped on that fucking team. Like,
also, the biggest reason why you should be so low on the Bulls this year, and you could even make the argument the Pistons and the Hornets finish with a better record than the Bulls because of this. Their vibes are horrid.
Yeah, dude.
Like, they already had bad vibes. Now they're holding Zach LaVine hostage. They added Josh Giddey to the group, who's once again, like you said, delusional, complete. Vucevic seemingly doesn't want to be there, but signed a contract extension.
Yeah, he just loves money. Yeah.
All the things that they could be like positive about are kind of just completely outweighed by the fact that they're like in piss and shit. Billy Donovan might be the first coach to get fired.
I might have like a world class. I might be making contrarian history here, where I might contrarian myself after being like so out on Boris Buzelis that I might like this Bulls team might turn me into a Buzelis believer, just because I'm like, if he can do it here, man, he can do it anywhere. Maybe he's just what they need. Maybe they need.
Here's the thing about Buzelis. Buzelis looked really good in stretches in summer league and preseason. I still don't think he's an impact player in his first 2 years in the NBA.
Yeah,
I think that it's even if he pans out, I think it's going to take some time. I think in the half court, he has a lot of work to do. I think in transition, he's going to look awesome. He's going to have some where you're like, holy shit, where did that come from? He can run the floor. He's very skilled and big, like huge margin for error for sure. As a rookie, I think that they might be willing to just like kind of let him play and live and die with his mistakes. And they'll probably lose a lot of games because of that. But in the long term, it will be better for his development. And he honestly is, even with all of my pre-draft skepticism, he's the most interesting young player on this team by far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like all of their other young players, I'm like, solid role player, Patrick Williams, whatever. Like, I mean, always been kind of overrated to me. Perfectly fine wing, I guess. Giddey sucks. I feel at least there is a pathway to Buzelis being like an impact player. It's just not this year.
Yeah, my thing with Buzelis and like the way that he was like comped and analyzed in the draft was, it was like, well, and this guy's a shooter, and that just drove me so insane, because it was like, what do you mean? He shot really good his senior year of high school and literally at no other point. Mm-hmm. Like, I see that like he could become a good shooter. That is not something that you fucking pencil in. You know, like shooting is one of the like hardest things to project on guys. Guys can look like they're going to be a good shooter and be fucking terrible. Yeah.
Ryan Dunn, when I was scouting him, I was like, man, if this guy could shoot, I would take him in the top 5.
Yeah.
But he's like 50% from the line, made 9 threes in his college career in 2 years, averaged 8 points a game his junior year of high school, which is the craziest thing I've ever heard about a player that's in the NBA. And now I'm watching him in preseason and I'm like, if I had known this, I would have had him top 5 on my board. What the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you can't project these things. Sometimes there's just crazy outlier shit that happens. Buzelis at least had more of a floor to be able to shoot. And I don't think that they're going to ask him to shoot a ton this year. I think they're going to give him the ball. And I think that they're going to let him cook. And I think that's going to result in a lot of losses, to be completely frank. But I also think that it doesn't really matter. The Bulls are now in a different phase. And I think that there's a possibility they lean into the tank. So my range for them is 11 to 13. I'm putting them at 11 just because I think they have the most talent. This could look really bad in a month or two. And it could be like, oh, wow, they have to pull the plug on this season. And they're like only better than the Nets and Wizards.
Yeah,
so
I think they could definitely be down at 13. LaVine's a real player. Kobe's a real player. Buzelis has a little bit of upside.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Lonzo's miracle treatment works, and then they've genuinely got like a decent amount of good players. I would.
And I actually think that like if Lonzo proved to be like himself again, which I do not think will happen.
Yeah, right.
No, I know. There's never. Think about the history of these kind of knee injuries. I always feel bad because these guys try to make comebacks. Kemba Walker, Brandon Roy, like they all have these like, man, they make, and then it usually ends in like, this is just not, there's nothing there anymore.
I will say at some point, medical technology will get us there that like a guy will do it at some point.
Yeah.
And,
we've come a long way. We've come a long way since the 80s with ACLs. That used to ruin your career if you tore your ACL. And now it's literally like guys out for 6 months.
I didn't think Sean Livingston was ever going to fucking play basketball again. And then he was just a great player for the Warriors.
That's the hope. That's the hope for Lonzo, is that he could have a Sean Livingston type arc. And if he does, if there's some miracle world we live in where that's the case for him, they're going to have a nice trade chip for the deadline at a minimum.
Yeah.
I think they trade him, and I think a ton of teams would be interested in taking a flyer on an expiring Lonzo Ball to get, if there's any way to match that salary. I know he makes like $20 million a year. He would be great for the Sixers if he even looked half of like what he looked like before. But yeah, so I have the Bulls at 11. So that's
looking for the Wolves if he was.
I don't think they have the salary unless they want to trade Randall.
I
just think they have too many guards now. Dante, they want to play Rob Dillingham, Conley.
It just gives you like a different. Well, Conley, I wouldn't make any plans.
Ant plays the two Conley a lot for them too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I think Lonzo can slot in. You can do defense. Defense with Lonzo and kind of have Ant.
Don't you want to play Dante a lot? Like Dante is going to play like 30 minutes a game at the one.
You can bring him in too. Like I think Lonzo's the one who plays like 20 minutes a game. Like,
yeah, we'll see.
And it's offense, defense. I just like having guys who have like a lot of different roles, and I don't think Jaden McDaniels is like the stopper that I thought he was like a year and a half ago.
So that's it for our non-play-in teams. We have moved up to the play-in now.
We're already in play-in range, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. Because I hate the Raptors. I think they're dog shit.
Okay, but hold on. The bottom 5 here. So I just want to put this out there. I don't want to use this person's name because he seems like a nice guy. But I saw one of the most, like, what I thought at the time was the most delusional thing I've ever seen, which was there was a quote that was going around from someone that was like, I actually think the Pistons can make the play-in this year. And my reason why I thought it was delusional was because their argument was basically they added Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Simone Fontecchio. They have spacing around Cade now. And that's just not the reason I think it's going to happen. If it does happen, it's because these teams down here are terrible.
Yeah.
and these teams, all these are going to have a ton of losses. And like I said, the 10 seed, we could live in a world where the 10 seed has like 32 wins and makes the play-in.
I'm like thinking about, because here's the thing. Spoiler alert, my 10 seed is the Toronto Raptors.
Mm-hmm. We're in lockstep here, by the way. We're still
in lockstep. Okay. The Toronto Raptors are still, they're a little bit above those 3 teams we just talked about. They're not that much better. Like, it's because of Scotty Barnes. I was blown the fuck away by where Quickly and Barrett were on that ESPN 100. Those are probably like the biggest things. I don't know who they think they are. Because here's the thing. I think when guys win 6th man of the year, people are like, oh, so that guy is just like a good starter. And that never, except for Naz Reid, who I just did this for. But like Jamal Crawford, Tyler Hero, Malcolm Brogdon, Lou Williams. All of these guys are not good starters. You try to start these guys with actual good players, and they're not good because they cannot just handle the diminished role. They're 6 men for a reason because they have a certain level of talent. They have a level of cook to them that will let them score points, do all this other stuff, work on that. That's what Quickly is, who's like a guy who was in there. He is not an NBA starter. He is an NBA 6-man. And I feel like I'm going insane when I see like Quickly discourse because he's like a good player but he's like, he could be a spot starter for you. He could be like an okay starter, but like the fact that he's
the Knicks, yeah.
Like it's exactly his Knicks. That's his future, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I like see like the way that like Quickly is talked about as like this like good starter. He's not. He's like a good rotation player.
I also think that has something to do with the fact that the point guard position has probably never been stronger right now, too. Like if you were to rank the top 30 point guards in the NBA, it would take you a while to get to Emmanuel Quickly. Yeah. And that's because even guys that are like in the All-Star conversation are further and further down that list because the position is just so strong right now. I mean, you can name so many guys that are in the top 10, Brunson, Luka, top 10, top 12, whatever. Brunson, Luka, SGA, like can at least feasibly play the point guard position, even if you think that they can, their other positions.
My beautiful Marcus is probably like 25. Which
I was gonna say, if you rank them, like it takes you a while to even get to like Maxey, and like Maxey's really good, and there are so many good players at that position. Having said all that, the reason I have the Raptors here, and I said this when we did why I took their over. The bottom of this East is so bad. And they at least have the semblance of an NBA team to me. Like, I don't think they're good by any means. None of these teams are good. You have to just compare them to who's at the bottom. And if you were to say, Jakob Poeltl, not great. He's a fine starting center. Scotty Barnes made the All-Star team last year. RJ Barrett, I think what he did was a little bit Mickey Mouse for sure. He at least showed some improvements in Toronto that makes me believe that he could be a passable wing. Quickly, I'm not crazy. I hated the contract they gave him. I thought it was a crazy overpay. I think that he's definitely, I agree with what kind of the sentiment of what you were saying. I also think that they're going to have to play a lot through Scotty anyway. Like that's their ceiling is based on what Scotty Barnes becomes as a player. They made a bet on him. That bet might prove to fail. And I don't know if they set him up in the best way possible with this roster construction, with the spacing that they put around him. Bruce Brown's already hurt, not great. Kelly Olynyk is defensively really limited, but at least brings you something as an offensive big off the bench. They have
player.
Grady Dick has looked really good in preseason. I still think the defense has a long way to go before he's like a positive impact player, but I think this team can win. Like I said, I think this team can win 31, 32 games. And I think that's all it will take to be the 10th seed in the East. Like, I think the West, the bottom of the West and the middle of the West is going to destroy these teams. And I think that when they play them, it's going to make the records look really bad. But like, how many games did the Hawks win last year? Like high 30s? And they were
39 or something like that, I think.
Yeah. I think that the play-in, I think they were the 10 seed, if I remember correctly, last year. They might have been the 9 seed. But either way, I think that's what the record's going to look like for this 10 seed. And that's why I'm putting Toronto here. Like, it has literally almost no faith with what Toronto will be this year. And it has more faith to do with the fact that I think every team below them has less talent and is more likely to lean into the tank, which Toronto, even when they didn't have their own pick last year, they just proved that they will never do it.
Yeah.
Well, technically they did blow up their team, but they're still trying to stay competitive, quote unquote.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems weird to me to go get the fact that they doubled down on Quickly is just so bizarre to me too, because like Scotty Barnes is like kind of got to be your engine. You know what I'm saying? That's why you traded Pascal Siakam. Like in as many ways, like you need some of these like low usage guys that are going to just, shoot, provide spacing, do all this other stuff. And like, that's like not really Quickly. Like he's kind of a 6-man. Like he's not as much of a cooker as like Tyler Hero or Jamal Crawford or like these other guys.
No, he shoots catch and shoot threes.
Yeah,
he's good at those. Yeah.
But he's also a small guard who probably kind of has to play point guard. Like he's a little overtaxed as a shooting guard, to be honest. Like, and like, I don't know. I just, it seems like a weird, like double down on that. And I completely agree with what you were just saying. Cause like, I think this Toronto team is like hot ass. But
even for the East, it feels pretty bad for the 10 seed.
Yeah, like it seems impossible. I didn't realize that means that they're going to be a play-in team. Like
that's why last time when we did the over/under podcast, I was like, "This is why I feel confident in this." Is that I think that I think that there are going to be the Wizards are a free win every time you play them. Basically, the Nets are at one point this season going to be a free win. And you beat up on some of those teams, and it's easy to start stacking up wins. And look, the Raptors, I don't love what they're building right now, but I do think that they will give a shit on every single night. And I think that if you're just trying to reach the 10 seed, that matters. If you're trying to win the NBA finals, that doesn't matter because you need to have the talent. Like if you're trying to literally just not be outside of the play-in, that matters. And that's why I'm sticking with them. So I'm going Raptors 10 seed. Who do you have in the 9 seed? Are we going to be in lockstep all the way up here?
Let's find out. Because I think that this is where it's going to start getting interesting. I gotta shoot or get off the pot here because I said I was going to be a game time decision on this one because this is the first like real choice. I don't like it, but I'm gonna do it. I will put the Hawks here.
We're in lockstep.
Fuck.
Yeah, I have the Hawks here. Look, we've said how we feel about the Hawks. The Hawks are. I think they're going to be very look. I
think they're going to win 40 games. Like I think they might genuinely be like 10 games ahead of the Raptors.
Yeah, I think that they'll win. I think they'll win high 30s at least. Yeah. And I think that as we've talked about time and time again here, like Rishi looks way better. Jalen Johnson looks like he's taking steps. Trey is always going to give you a top offense. Dyson Daniels, the offense still looks really rough for him. The defense, like he was playing great defense on Maxey struggled to score in that game. And that was all due to the fact that Dyson Daniels is just like a beast perimeter defender, probably one of the 10 to 15 best in the NBA. And
I'm so annoyed. I'm so fucking annoyed by that. I sold my Dyson Daniels stock at like the exact wrong time.
I'm still not in on. How many times am I going to fall for the perimeter defender who has no offensive talent? Like, true. Once again, can he be a rotation player? Sure. It's hard for me to believe that he'll ever be a high-level starter at a minimum.
Yeah, sure.
Because unless if the shot comes around, changes everything. But also, like, year 3 in a great environment now. A great environment. Playing off Trae Young is offense easy mode. It's why Rishi looks awesome. It's why Jalen Johnson's job is going to be really easy.
They're going to have Bogdan. Like, they have, like, a genuine, like, besides their center, they have, like, a genuine top 6. Dominating location.
What would the trade be, though? What's their salary?
Capella, I guess, like in some stuff.
So if the Blazers are
DeAndre Hunter, obviously.
Oh God, I wouldn't take that contract if I were I'd rather have Ayton.
Well, you get some picks, like.
I don't think they're going to be making win now. They already traded away a bunch of picks.
They got more.
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think there's any chance they make like a win now trade, quote unquote. I don't think that they're in that zone.
I don't know. I would think about getting Hunter off the team and getting a guy who could like. I'm not an Ayton fan by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I know.
But like
we just talked about, you literally had him on our episode where we did the fall offs, and you picked Ayton.
I want him out of Portland. I'm trying to get him out of Portland because like he can't be there. He needs somewhere. He needs to live under fascism. He needs like someone screaming at him, telling him he's a bitch, and like he needs to be domed. Like Chris Paul needs to go back to that.
Submissive DeAndre Ayton.
Yes, he's a sub, and he needs. I look. Trae Young is an asshole,
folks. He's gonna be a sub once Donovan Clingan gets in shape. Am I right?
Let's go! Boom! Awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's so fucked up that like I have the Hawks not because I actually kind of like this Hawks team. I think they've got like a little bit of upside too. Like I wouldn't be shocked if they win like 45 games. I think is like not out of the question for them. Like
folks, I'm just hearing this for the first time. Sam is high on the Hawks.
I love that. I can't wait to say that this is all Quinn Snyder's fault. Later on this year,
I have the Hawks here too. So I'm as I've said before in this preseason, I'm a little higher on the Hawks. Let's get to the 8 seed.
I gotta stick with my shtick here. I'm gonna go with the Miami Heat. Oh God, no, seriously.
Let's go!
Oh God damn it! I swear to God, Joe and I did not talk about this at all.
Yeah. We did not speak. We have literally in lockstep. I have the Miami Heat in the 8th seed.
God damn it!
What is there to say? I mean, I really don't know what else to say about the Miami Heat. I think that I like some of their young guys. I think that Khalil Ware hasn't really played in preseason. It's kind of weird. I like Jovic. I like Jaquez. I think that what they're building makes sense for the modern NBA, minus the fact that they have 3 combo guards as their guard rotation right now in Rozier, Hero, and Burks. But the big guys that can handle the ball and can pass and can defend and all of that, what they're starting to build makes sense to me. I still think that they're probably a year away from Khalil Ware being a legit impact player. He should play more. I still think that they've got some things to figure out with this team. We've talked about the Jimmy Butler thing all off season. Figuring out how Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier can possibly work together, their minutes, splitting them up. I like the direction that this team is headed in. I just think they're probably a year or two away from being back in the fold as like a legit playoff team and not out of the play. And this will be the 3rd straight year they'd be in this area. So
this is their Jimmy phase out season. Jimmy's like the guy with the stapler in Office Space, where they're just going to stop sending him the checks. They find out, but they don't actually fire him like in payroll. They just kind of like let him figure it out over
a farewell season for a Heat legend.
Jimmy Butler, the greatest Heat legend who never won an NBA title and was never remotely close to one.
More of a Miami Heat than LeBron James, I'm hearing all the time.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, awesome.
It's
just so funny to me. It's just so, because I get the sentiment behind that. I understand because
if I were a Heat fan, I would like ride or die for Jimmy.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand that, but also if LeBron James came to my city and won 2 titles and got us to 4 finals in 4 years, he would have statues in Philadelphia. I just anyway.
Yeah, Miami Heat. I mean, I think they're gonna be fine. I think they're clearly like grasping for. They are ready made to just have another star plopped in, and I know that it probably. They're still mad about it. I do think it was a blessing in disguise for the Miami Heat that they did not get Dame in the Dame trade. I think that they're probably going to have a better shot at someone who's like a little bit better. Like, I don't know. Maybe they end up like flipping Hero for Zach LaVine or something like that, like this year, or doing like a small upgrade. But we'll see. I'm sure they want Giannis. I'm sure they want Giannis.
Sure, but they seem too stubborn in like the exact kind of star they want. I've said before they should go trade for Trae Young, and they'll just never do it.
Yeah, that we've talked about that. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what what's the price for Brandon Ingram for them like later on in the I would kick the tires on Brandon Ingram if I were them, but
we'll see. All right, 7 seed.
All right, here's where we might start getting a little loopy. I have the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay, I had a feeling you were going to put the Bucks here.
Yeah.
Because I've been getting DMs from a few people telling me that they're putting the Bucks in the play-in.
Okay.
So what is the argument for the Bucks in the play-in?
They're old. They need Chris Middleton. He's starting the season injured. He's been injured a lot of the years. Giannis is like low-key, not really an Iron Man, like it is a little bit freakish when it's happened every year that it always happens in the playoffs against the Miami Heat, but like that does keep happening.
No, it happened against the Boston Celtics last year before the playoffs. Just saying. What did you do?
Who's
what were you?
I think they won that game, didn't they? I think the Bucks won that
might have won that game.
I think they won that game. Which is funny.
That was the game they won by 40. There you go.
Yeah. Small price to pay for Thanos. What did it cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
he did play 73 games last year before that. Though.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, he wears down because he doesn't have any help.
Sure.
Dame loves to say that he didn't work out. I'm sure Dame will have a better year, but he also is a small point guard who's 35? He's my age,
34, I think.
34. Yeah. Brooke Lopez is 97 years old. They're just old and they don't have a very like deep bench. Bobby Portis is one of the worst rotation players in the NBA.
On the nights where he doesn't look like Black Dirk Nowitzki.
That's true. Well,
he had a game the other night and I was like, this is the greatest player I've ever seen. And the next night I saw everyone tweet he was like a -20 in 10 minutes.
That was another one of my all-time bad calls, is being like really upset that he signed that extension. Like, oh God, the Bucks got away with it again.
Well, it did seem like it at the time because he balled out in the finals.
Yeah.
Or in that playoff run.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think they're the obvious. Honestly, I thought about having them like lower, but I respect Giannis a lot. I think Giannis is like really good, like too good. Doc is also, if anybody gets hurt, that's the other thing, is they do have the perfect coach for that. You have Doc, who like bizarrely is like God when it comes to like playing reserves and like injured people and like so I do think that's not going to hurt them as much as I think, but I also think the rest of the East is really this is the inflection point, like, right? Like the Miami Heat and the Hawks, like this is the inflection point, because these 7 teams, you could make a case for all 7, all the teams we're about to list, having like it's not likely, but they all have 50-win upside in some way, shape, or form. So I just, the Bucks are the old team with the least wiggle room. So even though they've been dominant, like recently, I feel like this is the year where it falls off, and that they don't have a lot of they just don't have a lot of wiggle room, and the rest of the East is really good. So
my only pushback on all of this is that they still have Giannis, and that if Giannis is on your team, I don't think that he's ever been outside of the top 4. I know that they were better before. I know that they have had all the thing you're saying is legit. I think that they got slight upgrades at like their fringe positions. I think that should help next year. That's why I'm a little bit higher than on them in the regular season, at least. But it's definitely possible they have a regression year. It's also possible that last year was their little weird nightmare year and that they bounce back. So
I picked the Milwaukee Bucks. Who are you picking?
The 7th seed. You have them as the last play-in team. Well, the first play-in team, technically.
Correct.
So I don't feel good about this one, but I have to stick with what I did for my over-unders.
Okay.
And I'm putting the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I thought about it.
So the Cavs have actually finished closer to the top of the East the last 2 years. They've been a top 4 seed the last 2 years. I don't really feel great about having them this low, just because I think that they have a lot of two-way balance, and I don't like to bet against teams that are pretty good on both ends of the court. Like, say what you will about their playoff struggles. In the regular season, they ball out. They had a stretch last year where they were awesome, as we've talked about. Part of that was without Garland, but they also have some lineups, even with his bad year, where they were pretty good last year. I still don't think the pieces fit. I still think that they make a trade.
You hate Jalen Tyson. You hate him so much.
I hate obviously, I'm a big anti-Jalen Tyson. I know that's the one pick of all the picks that the Sixers didn't make that I feel. I don't care about Dalton Connect. I watched him in preseason. I still don't get the hype. Jalen Tyson is the one guy that I wish that the Sixers had selected. I don't know if he's going to play for them, though. That's been my thing, is like, once again, rookies very rarely have positive impact anyway, even if they look good. Like, they're just not super impactful players as rookies. This team is weird to me because, like, the reason why I think I'm fading them is more about the overall feel of the team rather than the talent that's actually on it. They're a talented team. They have a good top 4. They seem to want to lean into this Mobley offensive, like, tilting, I guess. Like, they want to improve his offensive game. And I don't know if that's the best for winning right now. Like, I think maybe long-term, sure. Like, because I think their ceiling is limited long-term if Mobley is the offensive player he's been. If he can transform himself into a better offensive player, it will be better for their now. But for winning this year, I've heard like whispers that Garland or Allen could be traded even before the deadline, and that one of the reasons why they were jumping on getting Jared Allen to extend. Remember when Lowry Markkanen waited to get extended and everyone was like, oh, so he's not getting traded?
Yeah.
It's the opposite of that for Jared Allen. They extended him early so that they could have the option to trade him if things go a little bit sideways here this season, and they're realizing this shit doesn't really work. Having said that, Jared Allen, in my opinion, is still their second best player.
Yeah.
And if he's their second best player and they're considering trading him, even if the roster balances out and makes more functional sense, that is not a great sign to me if you're already getting whispers of that in preseason. You know what I mean?
It's tough because, like, you don't want to trade Garland. I do think Garland kind of had the year from hell last year.
Yes.
Like, I do think he's going to, like, bounce back a little bit. I'm just going to get this out of the way. I had them next.
Okay.
So, like,
6.
Yeah. So let's just talk about Cleveland right now. Like, they, like, Garland had that year from hell. There's a way that he could bounce back, but they are kind of stuck because it's like, you can't really trade Garland because we were just talking about the point guard's like so deep. Like,
Yeah.
You can't really get like a return for that. They're kind of trapped in this thing where it's like you're stuck trying to improve on like the Karis LeVert, Max Strus, Dean Wade spot.
Yeah.
And it's like all of those guys are like okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those guys are all like fine starters. I think actually Dean Wade is like
starter types.
Well, I think Dean Wade is technically their best fifth starter. Like, I think the on-offs with like Dean Wade, like, as the fifth guy.
I think him and Strus,
crazy.
That's more a product of them just having no good wing play, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think the fact that they have someone that can imitate a wing and can do some wing things like rebound and, space the floor and do what, like, I think that is such a positive for them.
Yeah.
But then again, like, I think they're solid. Like, I don't think that they're.
Yeah, they're not like terrible. Like,
I think they're solid players.
It'll hurt you in like round 2 of the playoffs because like you're gonna have to like do it, but like you can get through a regular season just fine. With that, like, so I don't know. Like, again, the top of the East is kind of a fucking bear. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even really think like Milwaukee's gonna be like terrible, but I have them 7th just because all these other teams are like pretty good. And that's
I was going to say, I think the Cavs are just kind of a victim of that to me. Like, to me, like, I don't think that I think the Cavs are going to be a pretty good regular season team. I just think it was really hard once I get up into this range to start picking. And I at least like the direction and the momentum of other teams. I feel like they're trending more positively, even if like the Pacers coming off the conference finals, even if it was a little bit Mickey last year, the Magic having their leap year and kind of trying to continue to build on that. I think this Cavs team has hit a bit of a ceiling is my point. Like, I think that this Cavs team is going to be a good team. I think that they, with maybe the right 5th guy in that lineup, they could figure out a way to make it work. I think that they're more likely to pivot the other direction during this season and make a trade. And I generally don't love if you're trading one of your top 4 players, and I don't know what the return's going to be.
Yeah. And I just like you said, I think the thing is Mobley, like that's like the big X factor is like, can Mobley like even like turn into any sort of like, even just like a KG, like 18-footer, you know what I'm saying? Or like, something to create like a little bit of spacing and a little bit of like pop. Because honestly, Mobley looked fucking good in that Celtics series. That had me being like, I get tricked when guys play well against the Celtics, but that's not nothing to play. The Celtics were really fucking good in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but I also think that was like after Donovan Mitchell got hurt, Jared Allen wasn't playing. As good as that was, they needed someone to do something.
Yeah.
And I mean, my it's like, look, he stepped up, he had some buckets, but like I've said this time and time again with the Celtics, like the Celtics will let you eat a little bit. The Celtics aren't going to stop you on every possession, but they will win the math battle. They're not going to lose if they're letting Garland and Mobley just shoot mid-rangers. Like, they know that they're going to be able to outmath you.
Well, he was getting to the rim too. I will say that.
Sure.
Though.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping an eye on that. That is like the upside. And again, I don't think it's like outrageous. If you want to tell me the Cavs are the 3 seed, I'm not going to like argue with you.
Yeah, I think they could be a really good regular season team.
Yeah,
like, I think this, to me, the 2 through the 7 is pretty fluid.
Yes.
Like,
agreed.
I think it's kind of similar to the West. It's like, I really only feel great about like the teams that are below them and then the team at the top. But like, I think that this range is pretty fluid for me. So let's move on to my 6th seed, which is, you might have them at the 5 seed, the Indiana Pacers.
No, I have the Pacers 4.
Oh, okay. All right. So Pacers, I think we've talked a lot about the Pacers in general. I think that They obviously made their kind of arrival year last year, making it to the conference finals. Halliburton makes a leap to all NBA. I think he could be a fringe MVP candidate this upcoming season. I think that if everything, I think the reason why they won a ton of games, they were the 6th seed last year. Reason why they won a ton of games is that they have a way of playing that it is similar to kind of the Memphis Grizzlies from a few years ago, where they catch a lot of teams off guard with their pace. But the difference is that they actually have an elite half court offense. Because most of the time, the thing with the Grizzlies was that like they would run on you and they would gas you and but if you could get them to play in the half court like teams would do in the playoffs, they weren't quite as good as they proved to be in the regular season. The Pacers half court offense is ridiculous. I saw someone was tweeting about, I won't even mention who they were tweeting about. They were talking about like an individual offensive rating. I just don't want to have that conversation again. You can imagine the player that I'm talking about. But they were talking about like a point guard who had like an individual offensive rating of 112. And I looked up Halliburton's offensive rating from last year, and it was like 129. Which, look, it is a team stat. It's not like an all-encompassing whatever. But this team is going to have one of the 3 best offenses in the NBA, if not the best offense again this upcoming season. I think that their defense is going to be about the same that you expect it to be. But I think that adding Siakam and potentially, starting Nembhard and Nesmith around Halliburton, they might get to a point where they have, instead of like a bottom 5 or 10 defense, that they have like the 18th best defense. And that is why they're, a top 3 or 4 seed as opposed to where I have them at 6, but I have them at 6 right now. So
I was going to say, I'm kind of surprised that I'm higher on them than you are. It's defense is kind of the main thing, like you're worried about in the regular season.
I also think that I think Halliburton was awesome in the beginning of last year, and that's when they ripped off a ton of wins. Yeah. They actually weren't great the second half of the year. Like all of their numbers were down, and I know Halliburton had the injury, but I think part of that might just be like they caught a ton of people off guard early last year, and they were able to kind of, now that we've had a year to game plan for them, what does it look like? And I'm not saying that they're like, I don't even really think this is a regression. Like they're going to be at the same seed as they were last year to me. But I don't know. I think that they made a leap about as high as you can make from season to season for a team that I didn't consider one of the 5 best teams in the NBA. But once again, like I said, this tier's fluid. Yeah. They could finish anywhere 3 to 6 to me, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay.
Yeah. So
more on that. Should I do my Pacers spiel now, knowing that I have them like higher?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I feel like they're like a picture perfect regular season team, and honestly, just they're really fucking young. And like they have a lot of guys hitting that zone where like young guys start to kind of come into their own. Like Halliburton probably is who he is, but like Nembhard,
I don't know if I agree with that. I actually think that Halliburton has levels to go still.
Really? Okay.
I don't think that anyone, this is my thing, is that I actually think that players who have high feel and skill levels like Halliburton historically peak actually in their late 20s and early 30s. Like you think about like James Harden, you think about the guys that he gets, Steve Nash, you think about the guys that he would be generally compared to. They all tend to peak in their late 20s. Like Halliburton's still 24, going on 25. Like I think he could go up another level or 2. But anyway, continue.
Sure. I think that transition, I think they're a good offensive team. They also are a transition team that plays their ass off. They're a Rick Carlisle team. Like they're the Russillo shtick about the Tuesday nights in Charlotte, like they're gonna show up. They're gonna euthanize this lower tier of because some of these teams we're talking about, like for example, the Sixers could absolutely fucking blow a game to the Nets. Like I don't think that's going to happen as much to the Pacers. I think the Pacers are going to euthanize the bad teams.
And that's kind of how they made their money last year.
Yeah. Like, so I don't think that they're going to like be making up those things, or like the Bucks. Even the Knicks, I feel like are going to have like some bonehead, like what the fuck, they lost to the Raptors, like at home, in January. Like, I don't think that's going to happen to the Pacers a lot. I think that They really impressed me with the conference finals. I think they've got all these young guys. They've got Jarris Walker. They've got Ben Shepherd. They've got weird young guys like that could just be good out of nowhere. Like Mathurin was like kind of bad, like, and maybe like they figure out a better role for him. There's just a lot of like upside. So like not all of those guys need to pop, but if like one of those guys is substantially better, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I felt bad about Isaiah Jackson catching the Edie pill. In preseason.
I mean, that's just not like the. It is very funny that I'm obviously, we've all been very high on Edie and his potential. We both had him like top 5 on our board.
Yeah.
But like, Edie, of course, is going to dominate backup centers. Like that's like 7'4", and like
that was like college. I don't know. I'm waiting to take my victory lap. He can still be bad.
He's going to be good. Like
we
have proof time and time. He's never been bad at basketball at any level, like compared to the competition. Guys like him don't fail. Like what else does he have to do?
Fucking easy for him, dude. Like yes. I was watching these highlights and I was like, these are so boring. And then I looked at the timestamps on this shit. Like it's like he did that. 18 points in 20 minutes. Was that what it was? Like,
oh, it was even better. I think he had. I can't remember, but it was dominant. It was like yeah.
I think I'm gonna be mad that like Ja Morant is taking too many shots. Like I think that's something I'm gonna say this season.
So like I do wonder. They talked about this a little bit on the Bill podcast. I do wonder if. They think that they might, just to give themselves a little bit more spacing to start. Maybe they play someone else, like they try Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5, they play another one of their wings or whoever off the bench, and then they just let Edie play starters minute, but he just destroys the backup center. Like he comes in and he's like fucking Shaq. Like you just throw him the rock and you clear out, and you're like 1.4 points per possession.
Oh my god!
Post-ups in the preseason. Now it was only 29, I think, but 1.4. Like, look, once again, small sample size, preseason, backup centers sometimes. Having said that, Jokic and Embiid don't even reach those levels. Like they're the best post scorers in the NBA, and they're like 1.1 usually.
Yeah. Obviously, it's preseason. Obviously, it's backups. But like Isaiah Jackson is like not.
He's bad. A guy. Like he's not nothing.
He's like a NBA center. Like I've never watched Isaiah Jackson and been like, he shouldn't be in the league. I think he's a pretty good rotation player. Like
yeah, exactly. But so look, man, Edie's going to be really good. I think that he has a chance to be one of the high impact rookies like that we get every year. We get like 2 or 3 of them. I think that he has the best chance of all of them. Someone who's 7'4" with his tools and his ability, like he ain't going to fail. And I think that he proved that in this preseason.
Us being high on Reed and Edie is looking very good. I'm just going to say that.
They're very obviously the 2 best players from the class right now.
I think we acquitted ourselves pretty well. I think we did well this draft season.
Well, there are some that I feel not great about, but I also think that it's preseason of the rookie year. Remember Carson Edwards, his rookie year? There's always guys that have these incredible preseason performances. A lot of it's based on the back of like hot shooting or whatever. And now I've decided that we're so far into preseason that it's actually from this point on, I'm taking nothing from preseason.
Yeah.
Because last night we were getting like 3rd stringers playing like the whole like I'm past the point of caring about what happens in preseason from tonight on. But yeah, long story short, I do think that it matters a little bit that you show that you belong in preseason at a minimum. So
the fact that he was immediately too good to be playing against backups is a good sign. I'm just gonna say that. Yeah.
No, I've said this, and this is why I'm mad at myself for not having Edie higher. He's only been playing basketball for 6 years. I think that's the most undervalued thing in scouting.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, everyone who became not everyone, all of these guys who have these like crazy athletic tools and only play basketball for 4 or 5 years before they get drafted and are already playing at like a serviceable level. they have underrated upsides. And Edey wasn't even playing at a serviceable level. He was playing at he was a baseball player before. And then they were like, he's tall, he should hoop. And then now he's like, flip the switch and he's absolutely dominating. So we love to see it. So who is your 5 seed? Are we on your 5 seed now?
Yeah, my 5 seed. I have the Orlando Magic.
I also have the Orlando Magic. So, okay. So Magic, I think we've talked a lot about them. If you want to hear our whole spiel on them, go listen to the Patreon episode that we did for the over-unders. I like the Magic a lot. I think they're going to have an elite lockdown defense.
Yeah.
I expect Paolo and Franz to take more steps.
Yeah.
I expect Suggs to get better. I pretty much am like, the real swing piece for me with them is like, can we just get a 70-game season out of Wendell Carter Jr.? Because if we could, then I would feel like they have a really good 1 through 9. KCP is going to make their defense even better and also add a little bit of floor spacing to alleviate some of the pressure off of those guys that are constantly stressed with having to create everything. I think getting rid of Markelle Fultz is addition by subtraction, and they're on an upward trajectory. Like, to me, they could reach as high as the 3 seed to me. It's hard for me to see them as a top 2 seed just because I still think they're a ways away on offense. I think defensively they're going to be amazing, and I think that that's good enough to get you in this. I think my thing for them is like probably 3 to 6.
I was going to say 3 to 7 is kind of my range for him. Like, and here's you did the good things, I'll do the bad things. Jalen Suggs probably played a little over his head last year. He shot
the shit out of the ball. But he did shoot the shit out of the ball the previous second half of the so we do have a year and a half of him shooting very well. But yes, I do agree that he shot like crazy.
He's probably going to regress a little. Not he's still going to be a great player, but like he's probably going to regress a little. Jonathan Isaac, another healthy season out of Jonathan Isaac, especially in an election year.
Election years,
he's been doing the CPAC tour, doing a lot of.
If Kamala wins, does Jonathan Isaac join AJ Griffin and start their own mega church, Joel Osteen style? And are they preparing for Jesus to come back? I
was going to say Jonestown too. Could they make it happen? Jones,
very possible.
They'll be fine, but I'm just saying, that was the problem Jim Jones had, was he joined everyone.
Exactly.
Like, you just get you hand everyone the Kool-Aid, then you get out. That's what they've got to. That's what they've got to do. So, so that's a little alarming. I mean, I will say a big part of
Jonathan Isaac Colt watch, a little alarming.
Yeah, it's a little alarming. Yes. I will say the offense, what's like a reasonable ceiling for the offense? Because it was still pretty bad.
I mean, they're kind of like the inverse Pacers to me, where like I feel so confident in them on one end of the court, and I think that they're capped probably at like the 17th best at the other end of the court. And like, how much better would Paolo and Franz would have to get on offense, because they've now leaned even further into like those are the guys, and I think that's the right thing to do, to be clear.
Yeah,
but also probably puts a cap on your offense for the regular season.
Yeah, it's KCP, if he can like shoot normally, I think will maybe help that a little bit. If Suggs could stay a good shooter, if Wendell Carter can play, and he can be like he's not like a lights out 3-point shooter, but he's like a decent 3-point shooter, gives him a little bit of spacing. Because that means you're playing like, is Goga even still on the team?
I was going to say, Goga signed an extension. He's going to play. They're going to play double bigs a lot. They'll play Mo Wagner at the 4. They'll play Jonathan Isaac at the 4 sometimes. Yeah. And I just want to say, like, I actually think that was a super savvy move of them to sign him, because now they have like a desirable trade chip for the deadline. Like, Goga, like if they prove to be like, oh wow, Jonathan Isaac's healthy the whole year, these small ball lineups can kind of function now that we have KCP. There's a possibility that they get to the deadline and go, we have Goga, Picks, and Cole Anthony.
Yeah.
Or whoever.
Sure.
Who can we get that will really help us?
The good news for the Magic
is Ogdon or someone, you know what I mean? Like someone.
Yeah. The good news is that's a pretty, like, I would rather have that. I would rather have a good defense where you're trying to make your offense I think that's easier to build. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the Miami Heat thing. Like, if you drop a like, it's easier to just go get a good offensive player and like drop them into, this setting. My thing is like, I expect Franz to have
White was another one that was thrown out there. Like, could they get Kobe White?
That'd be interesting. Yeah. I kind of like that.
Just to like be a different version, like a better version of Cole Anthony for them, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there are guys, is my point. And I do think that there's a chance that they can go out and improve at the deadline. Like I think that this is, because last year I remember Bill was like, I would just push in the chips right now. And I'm like, take a breather.
Chill out.
This is their first year being good. Let's see what the young guys look like. Let's see what it looks like in the playoffs. And then next deadline, now you added KCP, so you already have one guy who's improved. Now you have tradable salaries. Now you have picks. You can make that move at this deadline if you really want to. So Colin Sexton's another guy. Like there are guys out there. Like
Franz. I think Franz is going to be better. Franz just needs to like not have like the worst shooting year of all time.
Yep.
I think he could be better. Like Paulo's awesome. What I'm looking for this.
Can I see it?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm more worried about him in the regular season. Okay. Playoffs, he balled out
against Cleveland.
Against Cleveland, but like he shot like 40% from three for that series. He had like a 35-point game. Like he was really good in the playoffs.
Sure, I want to see it against like I want to see it against like Philly or the Knicks or the Celtics.
Well, you're in luck because my 4 seed is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Wow. Okay. Great. Now Will is definitely gonna yell at me later on.
All right. Well, here's why though. Okay. If we had done this podcast 3 weeks ago, I would have had them as the 2 seed.
Okay.
The problem is that I have learned a lot of information that is making me feel the worst I've ever felt about a lock that I did on our over-unders. Joel Embiid is not playing back-to-backs, which I already had a feeling it was probably going in that direction. He already doesn't play a ton of them anyway. This knee surgery was always going to alter. He's on the Jimmy Butler in his 30s management system now.
Yeah.
Where they're going to load management him a lot. Like he will play 55, 60 games a year probably.
Yeah.
We don't know if we're going to see him on opening night. Paul George already got the knee injury in the second preseason game. Looked great in the first preseason game. Looks a little shaky in the second preseason game. And then gets injured in the second quarter. When this team is healthy, they're going to be awesome. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be healthy the whole season. I think there's going to be weeks where Paul George is out. I think there's going to be weeks where Joel Embiid's out. I think they're going to take back-to-backs a ton. And the reason why, like, it's been driving me insane when people are like, why didn't Joel do this before? And it's like, because the Sixers would miss the playoffs every year.
Yeah. Like he team
has literally only been good enough to do this one time before. It was the year they had James Harden. And even that year, James Harden missed over a month. Tyrese Maxey missed a month of that season. Like the thing is that this team is good enough for Joel to miss time now.
Yeah.
Even without Paul George, even if it's just Maxey and a bunch of solid role players, they will stay afloat better than they did last year when they almost fell entirely out of the playoffs. There was no way he could have done this before. Now he has a chance where he can do it, where they can focus on the playoffs. I still have them as the 4 seed because I think that they're going to dominate when all 3 of those guys are healthy. And I think that when the Sixers and when Paul George sits, I still think they're going to be good. And when Joel sits, it's when both of them are out that I'm like, what does this look like? And I think there are going to be times like it's possible that they both miss the start of the season. Now Bontemps said Embiid is going to play to start the season. He said that they're aiming for him to return for the season opener. He'll be out of shape the first 2 or 3 games. Paul George almost certainly won't play in the first game. He might play, but it seems like they're probably going to be really cautious with his injuries this year too, because their goal is the playoffs. And yeah, so that's why I have them in the 4 seed. I thought about putting them as low as the 5 seed, just because once again, I don't think they're going to care about anything but having one of these, top 4 or 5 seeds. I think that when you get into the 6 to 9 range, they'll push guys a little bit. But this team, Yabusele looks great. He's been a huge surprise for me in preseason. KJ Martin's looks surprisingly good in preseason. Caleb Martin's fit in well. Yeah. What's that?
I've always kind of liked KJ Martin, to be honest.
It's weird because I was like up and down with him last year, but like for what this team needs, like a guy that will just bust his ass rebounding and defending and catching lobs and doing all the like garbage man stuff that we always talk about, he's turning himself into a nice little garbage man.
I felt that way about both on those ass Rocket teams. Him and Jayshawn Tate, both of them I kind of liked, to be honest.
And he's still only 23, I think. So like it's not like I don't think he's anything more than a bench player, but like he's a guy, Yabusele's a guy. The older bench players, I'm a little worried about Gordon and Lowry falling off, but like Caleb Martin's been coming off the bench. He's been awesome for us. I think this team is super talented, and I think when they're at full strength, they're going to be able to challenge a ton of teams. I think in the regular season, I don't think they will care as much, and I think that they will be the 4 or the 5 seed. So I have them at the 4 seed.
I think they're pretty. You didn't even mention Drummond, right? Like Drummond's on the team.
Hold on, I totally disagree. You're saying that the 18-19 team could have afforded it. Please go look at Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has literally fucking fooled everyone. Jimmy Butler was not good that season, dude. He didn't shoot threes for a month. Anyway, continue. Sorry. Yeah. It drives me insane when people say that. That team had horrible vibes. They were bad without Joel. Continue.
I'm not losing my mind. They signed Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond's back, right? Like,
Drummond. Yeah. And Drummond is Drummond. Like he's, when he's your starter, it's going to be shaky, but when he's your backup, it's going to be great.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Like I think it's a pretty big difference between Drummond and like Paul Reed. You know what I'm saying? I think definitely. Drummond. I think Drummond is like kind of underrated. Like I think Drummond is like a fine starter. Like, to be honest, like
he's a low end starter, high end backup.
Yeah. Sure. Like so. I think that I honestly I wasn't even considering like Gordon and like Lowry when I was like running through like the rotation guys. Like I think Yabusele, I'm like I still do want it looks good. I still do want to see it, but like Caleb Martin's a really good player. I'm still an enormous believer in Maxey. What he did in the Knicks series last year is so fucking impressive to me. And I hate to bill out. I think I said this on the other one. I think that fucking matters when you like put a 30 piece and like save a game in a playoff scenario on the road. Like that makes you a new guy. Like you're him. You are. And I think Maxey is not going to be as scared of asserting himself. I think he'll be more willing to like look off Joel when Joel's in the middle of being tired in the fourth quarter and still trying to demand the ball or something. I think Maxey will just do that. I don't even think they like really need to play Paul George that much. And like, I don't know. Some of these teams, all of these teams we just talked about had flaws. But spoiler, I have the Sixers as a 2 seed. I do have them as the 2 seed.
I think if you could guarantee me 65 games of Joel Embiid and Paul George, I would have them as the 2 seed. I think it's more likely that they both play 50-something games and they rarely ever play. I think they're going to be strategic about like when they play the back-to-backs. Like I think that they'll sit out Paul George one and then they'll sit out Embiid another. And then if they play like the Celtics on the first half and the Pistons on the second half, they'll play both of them against the Celtics and neither of them against the Pistons. Like for sure. I think they're going to be super strategic about it. They're going to feel it out, see how guys feel. And once again, if you could guarantee me 65 games, I would have them as the 2 seed. You can't do that. And the vibes right now are about as bad as they could be injury-wise heading into the season without a disaster happening. Like when we thought that Paul George might be out for the season after that night, the other night, like that looked bad. And I was like, oh no, they survived. They dodged a bullet, but they're going to be the Matrix this year trying to dodge bullets. Yeah. Like there's going to be a lot of nights like that where it's just like, oh my God, no, with Joel and with Paul George. So that's why I have them a little bit lower here. But I just think the team makes sense, and they've got a rare Sixers thing, which is a genuine full rotation of NBA players. Yeah, and by the way, Yabusele looked really good against that New Zealand team we played. He looked great against the Hawks. The Celtics game he struggled, but the Celtics game we were playing no one. Like they were all the starters were out, none of the vets played. It was basically just Jared McCain, Yabusele, and a bunch of guys. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Let's just run through our top 3 here then. Okay. Or did you say your 4 seed?
Well, I said the Pacers. We talked about them already.
Yeah, we talked about so let's run through our top 3 before we get into playoff matchups.
Okay.
You gonna say 3?
I start. Yeah. Knicks. New York.
Okay, so you have the Knicks at 3.
Yeah.
Who's your 2?
Philly.
Sixers, and then the Celtics at 1?
Yes.
Okay. So I have the Bucks at 3. I don't feel great about that one, I'll be honest. It's funny because
that's by far our biggest disagreement. Like every other one is like within 1 or 2. So.
I don't feel great about this one, but as I've said before, I'm going to lean with if you have Giannis and capable guys around him. I can't remember the last time they were outside of the top 3, even with all of the weirdness going on with the Bucks the last year or 2. I still think that like that basically guarantees you, and I trust Giannis to play more than I trust Joel. Like Joel will, and they've gone into this season being like, we don't care if Joel plays 70 games or whatever. It's more likely Giannis plays 70 games, and it's more likely. I think that we could be, for the second straight year, I think that they could be the 3 seed, and everyone could be like, what's going on with the Bucks? like the net rating isn't great, but they win every close game. There's still a little bit of weirdness going on with Middleton's health stuff, and there's still a little bit of weirdness going on with the Giannis and Dame fit. And this team just makes a little bit more sense to me now with the additions that they made this offseason. I don't think they're going to be majorly impactful. I also don't think that they're going to, I don't think that they're going to completely fall off a cliff. They were the 3 seed last year. The East is better this year. I think that is the one thing that is probably the biggest thorn in Milwaukee's side, is that the East is just better. But yeah, I haven't felt great about watching them in preseason. Like they won against the Bulls the other night, but like their starters were losing to like the Bulls for like a stretch of that. And like, it's not everything. It's not everything, but like, if you're going to play your starters in preseason, shouldn't they like care about that? Like,
yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
At one point, Josh Giddey was a +11 in that game. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So we'll see. We'll see with the Bucks. I don't feel super confident about that, but I will put them at 3, because I had to drop the Sixers due to this recent knee injury stuff with Paul George and Joel Embiid, and they leap them. So that's why I had them in the 4-5 originally, but I have the Knicks as the 2 seed. Let's just talk about the Knicks real quick.
Sure.
I don't know what to do with them either.
Yeah, I don't.
But their starting 5 is going to be really, really good. Like that is what I've still come to. Their starting 5 is going to have a crazy net rating. I think Tibbs will play them together 35 minutes a game. And I think that is going to be enough for them to get into this top. They're going to care every single night. They always seem to find these guys on the fringes and the margins that they could just throw out there, and they still win like a bunch of games. If I could go back, I'm not doing any more mulligans on the over under. I think I would switch the Knicks to over and the Sixers to under, just based on the news we've learned in the last 2 weeks. But that's only based on that. I like the Sixers as a fully formed team more than I like the Knicks. But I think that the Knicks are going to have a little bit more health availability. Their starting 5 is going to be together more. They're going to dominate in the regular season. And I think that it's basically, they've now built a team to try to push the Celtics.
I'm concerned about the rebounding. I'm going to be honest. I'm still really concerned about the rebounding. I think that you're putting a lot on fucking Josh Hart, like, to be honest, like, and he was like perfectly healthy last year, but you need all of those guys to be, all of your wings and all of your forwards to be plus rebounders, because Brunson's not going to, I know Cat is like a good rebounder, like, especially like, and I think he was doing really well, like as a 4, like playing next to like Gobert and all of these things. I quite frankly, I don't know. I don't trust that. I know what my eyes see when I watch Cat play. Like I'm never going to believe that like Karl-Anthony Towns is like an elite rebounder that can like anchor a small starting 4, because that is what the Knicks are. So I'm concerned about that. I think they're going to be a lights out offense. I think they're going to be one of the 5 best offenses in the NBA. So it like probably like won't matter that much. Yeah. I think it hurts. I think it's going to be interesting for their playoff hopes. And I think that they are a little bit susceptible to injuries. That said, all the things you just said, I think they're going to try really hard. They are like a very talented team. There's no doubt about that.
Hey, look, I said I don't read too much into preseason, but I think proving you belong as a rookie matters. Tyler Kolek has proved he belongs. And I was not high on him in the draft at all. All they need him to be is like when Brunson sits for 10 minutes a night, can you come in? I think he might be able to do that.
I'm getting yelled at. Everyone telling me, oh, you're telling me nerd things about how Cat had 16 rebounds the other night. That's fake. That's made up. I'm telling you. I can see I alone can see the truth. I have the Sharon Ganai.
I don't care about their rebounding. I think they're going to be fine. I think Josh Hart makes things a lot easier. If anything, I just care about their depth. Like I think their starting five is going to be dynamite. I think that their depth, just the bench stuff is concerning at least until they either trade Mitchell Robinson or he can come back and prove to be somewhat healthy in the second half of the year. So
I don't believe in. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. That said, they are going to be late. Did we talk about like maybe Brunson regression year too? Like,
I think it goes in the opposite. I think he's going to be even better this year.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think that
I don't think it's impossible.
I think Cat being a spacing 5 is like
sure.
So he's going to have a full year to play with Bridges and Anunoby on the wings instead. They'll probably use Josh Hart functionally as like a center sometimes, where he's screening and diving and rebounding and stuff. I think that the one thing I will say is that I could see a regression in the playoffs a little bit when teams load up, because Will has pointed this out before, and like half of their offense came on second shots and third shots in that Sixers series last year when they were able to rebound a ton and just kill the Sixers on the glass. I don't know if they'll be able to do that as much this upcoming season. We'll see. But I think in the regular season, he's going to be an MVP candidate for sure. Like, I think he's going to average over 30 points a game. I think they'll go like full Helio around him. And I think that he will have better spacing and at least the stats and the media stuff push to be in the conversation. I kind of think Brunson's going to go nuts this year, but we'll see.
I'm like lightly Knicks skeptical. I still think they're going to be like really good, but I'm not going to be surprised if it looks rough coming out and if they have like a bad playoffs.
Well, you were on this with the Bucks last year, and that's kind of how they were.
We'll see.
I was going to say, if you go gut feeling wise, that was your gut feeling last year with the Bucks.
Yeah.
And that proved to be true, even if they were like a good regular season team. Like, if something always felt off with them.
Yeah. I'm just going to be like monitoring that.
All right, let's run through. We know the Celtics spiel, right? Like, I mean, like, we don't have to do the Celtics spiel.
They play 3 white guys and they're still good.
They're going to be the 1 seed. And like, if they're not the 1 seed, it's because they don't care. And because Porzingis is out they just tell Porzingis to come back in February or whatever.
That's the thing. Like Porzingis, like I guess if Tatum like never gets hurt, but like I guess if Tatum gets hurt or something, like
or any one of these older guys like misses a bunch of time, but I don't know.
I think they'll be fine. Yeah, I think they're a 60-win machine again.
Okay, so we both agree on that. Play-in.
Yeah.
What did your play-in look like?
So on my side of the bracket, I've got Toronto, Atlanta. I think Atlanta annihilates them in the 9-10.
Yep, I have that too.
Milwaukee, Miami, which is like a very funny
rematch. I mean, the Sixers had their rematch in the play-in against Miami last year.
Yeah, I think this is like Miami. I think this is Milwaukee, like pride. I think this is their like ride off into the sunset moment. I think they do beat Miami.
Okay, so you have the Bucks over Miami. So then the Heat play the Hawks for the last spot to get in.
And unfortunately, I think Miami takes care of it. I think that this is like the little brother, big brother franchise thing. Like I think Atlanta, I think it's going to be tough for a while.
Okay, my play-in is I have Cavs over Heat.
Okay.
Then I have Hawks over Raptors. And then I have Heat over Hawks. So my 7 seed will be the Cleveland Cavaliers, and my 8 seed will be the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I think our plans were identical, just with Milwaukee and Cleveland.
I ended up with a ton of rematches without even realizing in my playoff draw.
Yeah, I saw that.
My 1-8 is Celtics Heat. My 2-7 is Knicks Cavs.
Yep.
And then my 3-6 is Bucks Pacers. And then I obviously have Sixers Magic in the 4-5. So why don't you tell me your playoff predictions for the first round?
Well, I think Boston euthanizes Miami again.
Yep, I have the Celtics in 4.
Yeah, I have 5. I think Jimmy will do something at some point. Maybe Porzingis is hurt again. I don't know. I have this is
Hold on, I have a prediction. I have a prediction. Ready?
Yep.
the Celtics win game or the Heat win game 1 in Boston next year, Jimmy Butler goes on Instagram.
Oh my God.
And posts, it's not as fun when the rabbit has the gun or something like that,
Did you just make that up?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some, oh no!
Oh no.
It was so good that it literally knocked my camera off.
That was so funny. The wide receiver tweet, Jimmy with the wide receiver tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing.
Exactly.
So the other one is, I think we finally get in my bracket, we finally get Sixers Bucks.
Okay, so we get Sixers Bucks in the first round in the 2-7?
In the 2-7 matchup.
Oh boy. What does that look like?
I think that's a little scary for the Sixers. I'm going to be honest.
I would not want to face the Bucks in the first round.
I think it's Sixers and 7.
All right, so you have Sixers and 7 over the Bucks. So if the Bucks lose in the first round, do they trade Dame or Giannis after the season?
They probably ask Miami if they want Dame, and I think it'll depend on the price that they have. I don't think they're gonna trade Giannis until he asks out, which I think we're still like a year or two away from. So
sure,
yeah.
Okay.
So
I have Knicks Cavs in that matchup, and I went Knicks in 6. So.
Okay, I have Knicks Cavs in my 3-6 matchup, and I have Knicks in 6.
There you go.
So,
although I will say, I think that this matchup is more interesting now, because remember the reason why the Knicks lost or destroyed the Cavs a few years ago was that they were just so physical with them, and they dominated them in the glass, and they created all these extra possessions, and they kind of just punked them. This is like. People have talked about this. I've never seen an identity flip from a team that the Knicks have gone from 2 years ago to where they are now, where they were like playing like RJ Barrett and Quentin Grimes, and Mitchell Robinson was playing a ton, and Randall was all over on the glass, and they would just try to basically make you bleed out and play football. Now they're like kind of like an offensively tilted, smooth, 5-out spacing. They're a different team. They've completely changed their identity, and I actually think that the Cavs might have a chance in this series. I think that the Knicks would win, but I actually think that it's just a different fundamental matchup, and the reason why the Cavs got their ass kicked 2 years ago was just because they were not prepared for that at all.
Sorry, I was muted while I was typing in our predictions. Yes, I think that I think it's interesting. Like they're gonna have the tough day. I'm fascinated to see what the Knicks like playoff identity is like now that Cat's on the team.
Yeah,
it really is like this is like a vibes check. Like, can you survive Cat vibes? Like I
Wolves got in a harder conference. The Wolves did get to the conference finals last year.
That's facts. I think Anthony Edwards is a much better playoff player than Jalen Brunson. Like I know Jalen Brunson is
much better, but I think that his run in the first 2 rounds last year was pretty good.
I don't know. I remain skeptical of Jalen Brunson as a playoff player. I know that like he's been like
why? He's averaged 30 points a game in multiple playoff series.
Okay, yes, but like round 1 playoff series, like awesome, cool. Like
I mean, he played good teams. Also, I think he averaged 30 a game in the Heat series 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, again, same thing. That's like they were an 8 seed. Like I know they made the finals, but like that's like a different thing. This is like a double magic team. Like I think if you ask Jalen Brunson if they have to play the Magic, for example, let's see what happens. Okay, like I would like to see a Knicks Magic like matchup, and let's see how Jalen Brunson does. So
okay. He averaged 32 points a game in the playoffs and 7.5 assists.
We'll see. I'm just saying. I'm going on vibes. Look, the Knicks have owned me before. I think when they made their like leap, I said that they were gonna like not make the plan. So the Knicks have owned me before, but I don't know.
So
like playoffs.
So I have next is Bucks Pacers for me. Sorry, I had to sneeze. This episode had a ton of technical difficulties. We're never going to get to the ESPN NBA 500. We might
we'll just do that next time. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. I'm going to go Bucks in 7 over the Pacers. I think the Bucks get their revenge on the Pacers. I think that my thing with this Bucks team is like I said, I don't feel super confident about it. I also felt like last year, if they were healthy in that series, like Giannis misses the whole series, Dame gets hurt halfway through the series, I think they could have beat the Pacers. I think the Pacers will probably be a little bit better ready for this matchup this year. I have it going 7. It's a coin flip series to me. I think the Bucks have a little bit of a bounce back year. They at least get to the second round here, and they win a playoff series. I mean, just assuming Giannis is finally healthy for the first time in 3 years in the playoffs. That's really all it comes down to for me. So, and then what's your last playoff matchup that you have in your 4-5?
Mine is Indiana, Orlando, which is the bizarro.
Yeah.
The bizarro, unstoppable force, immovable object, when Indiana's on offense and Orlando's on defense, and then a Three Stooges shtick when Orlando's on offense and Indiana's on defense. So, I really want that matchup. I think that's fascinating. I think that could be a really fun rivalry, to be totally honest, because those are kind of heir apparent. Yeah, those are kind of the heir apparent teams. I think that they're both good enough to take down the Knicks. I think the Sixers and the Celtics are going to kind of phase out a little bit here. The Celtics financially and the Sixers health-wise. So these teams are going to be setting themselves up for the next kind of the back and forths to kind of control the back half of this decade. So I think it's a fascinating series. I honestly don't know. I think this is a 7-game series. I think this is kind of a coin flip. To be honest, I have the Pacers as the home team, so I'm going to go with the Pacers. But that is not shade to the Magic. I think the Magic could absolutely win this.
It'd be a really interesting series. It's just a complete stylistic bizarro series for sure. The Pacers are going to want to run a ton. The Magic are going to want to muck it up. It would be very interesting to see what happens there. I have the Sixers and the Magic in the 4-5. I have the Sixers winning that series in 7. This seems like it's going to be one of those series where it's kind of like a nightmare for me, where the Sixers lose game 1. The Magic lock up Paul George. Joel maybe is coming back from an injury and he's out of shape. Maxi's fighting for his life. They're just fouling him every other play and the refs aren't calling it. And I start to spiral into a complete panic before the Sixers shift back, right the vibes, win the series in 7. Once again, I think the thing with the Magic is I still need to see the offense. I believe very much in their defense. I still need to see the offense take more steps before I think they can win a playoff series against a legit team. And I'm assuming health from the Sixers. If one of Paul George or Joel Embiid goes out, this is pretty much I think the Magic could easily win a series like this. So I'm going Sixers in 7, which sets up my second round series of Sixers and Celtics. What is your second round matchup?
My second round matchup is Boston, Indiana in the 1-4 East Conference Finals rematch. I think it goes probably what it should have been, which is a 5-game series instead of a sweep. A sweep, but I think Indiana probably should have won 1 or even 2 of those games probably. If you play that series a lot, so I'll stick with 5. I'm still pretty bullish on Boston. That's not really shade to Indiana. I just think that Celtics are kind of a buzzsaw.
So I have the Celtics in 7 against the Sixers. I think the Sixers are more likely to push the Celtics this year than any team did last year. Once again, assuming relative health, I don't think that any team is going to take down Boston in the East this upcoming year. I've been trying to do the thing with Boston where I don't want to trick myself, because we do this every year where the Bucks win the finals and we're like, oh, well, they're going to repeat.
Then we did it with the Nuggets.
We did it with the Nuggets last year. Although, to be fair, you picked the Timberwolves to beat them. So you at least called that one. And I just want to say about the Nuggets thing is I want to just say that I think that in the East, I don't see anyone taking Boston down. There are West teams, I think, that can challenge Boston, and we'll get to that on the Patreon episode. But I just want to say that, I think that the Sixers and the Knicks can challenge Boston and can at least wax the margins down to a winnable series in a way that I don't think that any of the teams last year, not like I've said this time and time again, where like Boston didn't need the injury path they had last year, but they got it, and then they just ran through the conference.
Well, it's not like they were missing Porzingis, like most
sure,
of the playoffs,
yeah. So I think that both of these teams can challenge Boston. I don't see them taking down Boston this upcoming year in the East. Now, once again, like I said, I don't want to fall into the pits of the repeat thing, but I do think that this Boston team is better suited than the last few, I would say, especially that Warriors team. That Warriors team, we knew instantly that was like pretty much a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
The Nuggets, we thought they had Jokic. We thought obviously best player. We didn't really factor in the Wolves kind of building a team to take down the Nuggets and maybe even potentially destroy them for good. With Boston, there's more consistency with this team. Their net rating was really good in the regular season. They ran through to the NBA Finals. I think that they're going to win the East again. Just spoiler alert for the next round. But yeah, so I think if the Sixers can avoid them, they can get to the conference finals. I think if the Sixers don't avoid Boston until the conference finals, they lose in the second round again. So
I think I completely agree with everything you just said. I think you identified the two teams that I think are the only teams that like have a chance. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think these other teams, like all due respect to Indiana and like the Magic and even Cleveland, like there's so much would need to go wrong for Boston from like an injury perspective. I think that the Knicks and the Sixers are at least close enough that like one injury, like you're in the mix. Right. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. Like the margins for error are going to be smaller for the Celtics than they were last year. Yeah. Where like they were, other than obviously they had the Porzingis thing, but Donovan Mitchell didn't play, Halliburton didn't play, Jimmy Butler didn't play. No. None of that mattered to me. The Celtics were always winning the East. Like it was just an easier fashion for them because of those things. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy this year. So
it just meant them going like 16-2 instead of like 16-7 or whatever it would have been otherwise. So.
As far as would you take the Celtics or the field? I would take the Celtics.
Oh, Celtics, yeah.
I would take this in the East. In the East, not in the NBA.
No,
in the NBA, I think that I would still be. I almost never take the one team unless it's literally like the Warriors with KD and Steph those 2 years.
Yeah, no, and like I'm kind of being skeptical on like OKC, but there is like a world where like OKC is just as dominant as Boston, and like that's like a real Titanic matchup. There.
So, all right, what are your second round matchups?
So like I said, Boston in 5 over Indiana, and then so then it's Philly Knicks rematch.
Oh God.
I like Philly in 7. Little revenge series here.
This is going to be, if that playoff series happens, I'm fascinated to see what it looks like. One, because I'm like, who is still alive by the second round? Because last year I kept saying, I don't care if we play the Knicks, just please don't give him to me in the first round before Tibbs has run the legs off them. And then I'm sure on the other end, Knicks fans are probably saying now, like, if we get Philly again, I would gladly take them in the second round because we know Joel or Paul George is going to be hurt. Yeah. And then it seems like easy work for us. But I think that's a coin flip series for sure again. Like, I'm kind of like, I just think that is like a very evenly matched 2 teams.
I do feel like, I do think, again, this series is almost going to be entirely decided by health, as you said. Fully healthy, I do like Philly a little bit better. I do think it's 7, but I also have Philly as a home team here, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm doing Sixers in 7 over the Knicks.
So I have the Bucks and the Knicks. I took the Knicks in 7. My thing with this matchup is I think that ultimately, if the Knicks have, I'm assuming relative health for everyone, if the Knicks are healthy, I like the fact that they could throw OG on Giannis. I like the fact that they could throw Bridges on Dame. And I like the fact that defensively they're going to make the Bucks work on the other end. Between Brunson and Cat at the 5, they're going to have it's going to be tough for that Bucks perimeter defense that was really bad this year. I think that Gary Trent Jr. and DeLon Wright will be an upgrade for the regular season. I don't know how much that is going to matter in the playoffs when they have to go up against like legit elite offensive talent and they have to slow them down, and they weren't able to all of last year. Their interior defense with Brook Lopez and Giannis will probably still be good, but I think the fact that the Knicks want to space you out and make you kind of have to work your ass off to slow them down is going to fall into their hands. And the Knicks are the home team for me, so I'm going to take the Knicks in 7.
That's a fascinating series. I would love to see the effects of Giannis halfback dives on a Knicks team on a Thibodeau Knicks team over the course of the series.
It would be fascinating for sure. If OG gets hurt though, like that's the thing is if OG's healthy in the second round, I like their chances.
Yeah.
If OG gets hurt though, the Bucks are just, I mean, that's food for Giannis.
Well, and I think that like that is gonna be like Giannis. That's my issue with Giannis is he like fucking hurts people because he's so big and strong. Like he's just gonna be running over
he hurts himself more than he hurts other people. Though that's my thing. Is like I think that like my thing is like Giannis tends, especially in the playoffs these last few years, he turns it so high up that he gets. Do you ever hear Brace from True Anon talk about how the guy get too excited and he died on January 6th?
Yeah. yeah. The guy's heart attack. Yes,
he just got too excited that a coup was finally happening, and then his heart exploded and he died. That's Giannis every year. We get around to playoff time, and he gets so excited. He sees the Miami Heat on the other side that he just runs into the paint, and then lower body explodes.
Just his delts explode. Like,
that's what happened. That's what happened in the Hawks-Bucks series. That's what happened in the Heat series. That's what happened in the Celtics game at the end of last year. Giannis, just calm down. Stop getting too excited.
It's fine, bud.
So yeah. All right. So our conference finals matchup. Your conference finals is.
I'm copy pasting your second round matchup. It's Boston, Philly, and I have exactly the same thing happening. I think Phillies gives them their biggest scare to date. It's in 7, but I still think the Celtics pull it out. So
I have the Celtics in 6 over the Knicks. I do think that the Knicks have built a team. I don't know. Like everyone keeps talking about how they can slow down the Jays. With OG, and
that would slow the Celtics down.
Back.
Jaylen Brown's just like, what the fuck? Aren't you dead?
OJ goes into killer mode and just throws off. Jason Tatum's not ready for the moment.
David Schwimmer descends from the rafters. Juice, no. Juice.
OJ Anunoby is going to be killing
Anunoby.
I do think that there has been a lot of talk that's been made about that. The one thing I don't love for the Knicks in this series is that the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, I think, helps them in almost every other matchup. I don't think it helps them in this matchup.
No.
I think it makes it worse in this matchup. And I think that's why I'm still so split on that trade. Because I think that it gets you to the point where you can make the conference finals. And that's really would be amazing for the Knicks.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
They haven't made one since like 2000. But it also just makes this Boston matchup even trickier for you. So it almost feels like you went 90% on one plan and then you just completely reversed it at the last second.
Yeah.
Because like even with all of Randall's faults, even with like a Cat performing better in the playoffs last year up until the conference finals, like I kind of love the Knicks Celtics matchup more for the Knicks before they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns, and now I don't love it as much. I actually think that I'm going to take the Celtics in 6. And I have this is not trolling, by the way. I have Derek White as my Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I think it would be a great bit if the Celtics won like 3 titles in a row. Jason Tatum never won.
No major accolade.
And the Celtics are winning every year, but it's driving Celtics fans insane.
That would be
like, no.
I mean, show me you know my thoughts on Jason Tatum. This has always been my thoughts on Jason Tatum.
Look like a different guy in preseason. I've been told he's out for blood this season. The Celtics. It's going to be so easy for this.
Even if he is back,
matter.
Yeah, he's not going to score enough points.
I was going to say relative to other superstar players, he might not have the same statistical output, but this team is just going to be a beast, and he is a big part of that. Like jokes aside, kayfabe aside, like he is going to be a dominant rebounder. His defense is going to be really good. Everything works because of the fact that he's like a playmaking four now that can do all the things that pretty much no other four can do, except for probably Giannis, and even Giannis can't shoot.
When he does take catch and shoots, he's great. Just stop taking fucking pull-ups. Like
the pull-ups in preseason look better, but like I don't know. I don't really.
I just watched his rookie year.
Do you need that though? Do you need it? Is my whole thing. Do you need Jason Tatum to shoot pull-ups? Because you get a good offensive look every time you come down the court. Why do you want him shooting a ton of pull-ups?
Dude, watch his rookie year, man. It's alarming. It's so jarring. And he is kind of baby Giannis now, where he is genuinely kind of a lights out, restricted area, and he gets to the line so much now. So what does it matter, really? He is.
It is honestly, you would rather have him be that than what he was, probably.
Yeah. Hold on, Nate. I want to push back on that. Nate, he stole from us. We've been making this. We're just recycling our own bullshit.
A year. Yeah,
no, we're just recycling our own bullshit. We're huffing our own farts here because that we've been saying that for honestly 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, pretty much since I joined the podcast. I feel
it's been a while. Yeah, but all right. We'll be back tomorrow night with our Western Conference predictions. Maybe we'll get to the ESPN NBA Top 100. We'll see. Probably not.
2 hours and 20 minutes on this one.
I didn't think it was going to take this long, but we're always on our bullshit. We'll be back, by the way, early next week. I'm going to have an announcement very soon about but for those who know, save the date for the end of March. We might have a trip coming up. You guys aren't going to want to miss that one. We'll have a full announcement next week. Second part of this, I'm going to be streaming a lot for the opening week. We have a Uniball contract extension stream for the 2021 draft class next Monday at 5 p.m. We also have opening night stream. Celtics Knicks are playing. We're going to be doing that. Lakers, Wolves. And then for Sixers Bucks on Wednesday, we're going to be streaming. So 3 straight nights I'm going to be streaming. Sam will probably join at some point. We'll have a bunch of other people on as well. So you don't want to miss that. We're very exciting things coming up.
Big plans. March 6th. That's not actually the date, but I like
24th or 25th. 6th. I can't remember.
Yeah,
late in March.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right. Peace.